Welcome to r/slash Nuclearrevenge, which is basically r/slash Prorevenge on steroids. And buckle up everyone, because some of these stories are really brutal. Also, at the recommendation of a bunch of my viewers, I've switched over to dark mode. Let me know down in the comments if you prefer dark mode. Why I really shot my ex-wife's husband in the face 14 years ago. My ex and I had a son. Before fathers truly had equal rights, she got remarried to a former army surgeon and relocated to another state to live with him and his daughters. We made an arrangement that our son would spend all vacations and holidays with me. As he got closer to graduating high school, we planned for him to live with me full-time so he could attend a university in our city. He announced that he was not going to college but joining the army. This was in 2003 when we were in Iraq. I tried to talk sense into him, but he was sold on the idea that joining the army would be like one big party, and that he would never be sent to a combat zone because the army had enough volunteers. I asked him where he was getting this information from, and he said his stepdad. I got into it with him over it, but my son joined. Less than a year later, he got shipped to Iraq and was killed in an IED explosion. His stepdad had no remorse for pushing him to join or lying to him about serving out his time in Germany. He then started making insulting comments about my son, like how he wasn't tough enough. So I shot him in the face. Twice. He died a week later. I was caught and sentenced to 20 years, but got out after 13 years with good behavior. My lawyer said it would be best to say I was motivated about his stealing my wife, when in reality I was the one who left her and couldn't have cared less about her. He took fatherhood away from me, so I took fatherhood away from his daughters, who are all now meth heads. My only regret was that he didn't suffer longer. I have no regrets. They say two wrongs don't make a right, but I am feeling much better knowing that he's dead. This isn't nuclear revenge. This is apocalyptic revenge. That was absolutely brutal. That was painful to read. To be honest, I really feel sorry for the ex-wife in all this. First she lost her son, then she lost her husband, then her ex-husband went to jail, then her two stepdaughters became meth heads. So she practically has no one left. She didn't even do anything wrong either, except I guess marry the wrong guy. But how could she have known that marrying this guy would have resulted in her son getting killed in an accident? So she didn't do anything wrong, but her life was destroyed by this nuclear revenge. My God. It's like she got caught in the nuclear fallout or something. Some time back, I was hired to a company by a CEO I had previously worked for someplace else. He was a good friend, so when his newest company wasn't achieving sales, he headhunted me to join the new one. The company hadn't made a sale in 2 years. Year 1, the software product was in beta, so it wasn't ready to be sold. Year 2, they realized using the tech staff to make high-end sales to C-level executives was the dumbest sales model one could conceptualize. In general, and there were exceptions of course, these two personality styles don't speak the same language. Tech people talk tech, buyers talk benefits and how the potential product fills needs. I bridged the gap well by translating tech speak into natural conversational language so buyers better understand how their needs will be filled. The job was an hour-and-a-half drive one way from my home, so the CEO said I could work from home as long as I kept the sales management tool current. It's where you keep the notes of each prospect's status, came to important meetings, and made sure the executive team had daily sales reports. The first month, I made the daily 3-hour commute because I needed to have solid, constant interaction with all the departments to rapidly form my sales strategy and develop a two-way confidence level with the section heads. Once I had a handle on things, I was ready to launch my sales plan. In the meantime, the CEO hired a VP of sales, jerk boss, who started 4 days before I hit the ground running to get in front of buyers. She was a VP coming from the banking industry and had a long career in sales and marketing and finance products. I hated her from the moment she arrived. She knew nothing about tech, and I spent huge time trying to orient her, which wasn't ideal because I needed to work on my sales strategy. They brought her on board because she had strong experience gaining financial investors. Nevertheless, I forged ahead, traveled to a target state, and spent 19 days crisscrossing it. When I came back, I had 17 contracts from buyers totaling about $2 million in sales. My CEO was overjoyed. Fast forward 6 months and now working from home. I'm rocking and rolling. Sales are strong, CEO is happy, good things are happening. Jerk Boss has landed an investor willing to drop $6 million into the company, and they are coming into town for a discovery meeting. She asked me to drive up because they specifically want to meet the salesperson. Seconds before walking in the door for the big meeting, Jerk Boss pulls me aside and says she needs me to back her up on a lie she has told them. Basically, she doubled my sales numbers. I told her there was no way I was going to do that. She says the CEO has okayed the lie. We get to the part in the talk where the investor is looking over my inflated sales numbers on the prospectus, then directly asks me how many sales I'm making a month. Jerk Boss is behind him waving her arms, but I was having none of it and answered truthfully. He looks askance, staring at the document which has the false numbers listed, while she's giving me the stink eye behind him. No one says a word. Dead silence. I asked to see the document and fates have aligned, allowing me to solve the dilemma. I explained the first two numbers were transposed. They correlated well to my real sales versus inflated sales if you flip-flop the first two digits. Potential investor is satisfied and we move on. Switch gears. About a week later, I was meeting with the chief information officer in his office and he referred to my big tits. I'm no shrinking violet, but it stunned me because it was so unexpected. That night, I was chatting with my BFF, who happens to be a lawyer, and told him about it in casual conversation. He said I should tell the CEO so he can address it. Thinking along smart business practices, I decided to tell Jerk Boss, to whom I directly report as proper protocol since we don't have an HR department yet. Side note, I also reported directly to CIO as a boss since my role was a muddy mix of sales and tech. The next day, CEO calls me in and I take him through it, telling him it's no big deal, but to make sure he talked to CIO so it didn't happen again. He says he'll do it right away. 2 days later, I check in with him and CEO still hadn't talked to CIO because the investors were in town. I gently push him to get it done and casually mention my best friend, who happened to be a lawyer, was the one who urged me to tell him because any good CEO would want to know about it. I reiterate I'm not mad or upset. The only word he heard was lawyer. He went ape that I was bringing a lawyer into the mix. Now, this guy was my good friend. We'd worked together at 2 companies for years. I calmed him down, or so I thought, explaining that I only wanted him to talk to CIO. I also told him that I hadn't brought a lawyer into it, that I had been innocently chatting with my BFF who just happens to be a criminal defense attorney. He seemed okay, and we hung up. The next day, I'm working as usual, and I get a call from an attorney who explains the company has hired her regarding my sexual harassment claim. I'm flummoxed and adamantly told her that was not the case, that I had no claim against the company. She said otherwise. And that's when everything changed. Dramatically. CEO was furious with me for bringing this on when investors were looking into us. His reaction set the tone, which filtered down. The company began to retaliate against me. Jerk Boss now made it her mission to make my life heck. Forgetting to tell me about important meetings I was supposed to attend, freezing me out when I was in the office, telling me I could no longer even speak to the CIO, a problem since I'm selling a multi-million-dollar tech product needing his input, and I directly reported to him as my other boss, denying me a long-planned, approved vacation, basically anything she could devise to screw me over. She was gleefully working it. Coinciding with this was a serious health problem I developed, ultimately requiring surgery. My illness had no impact on my work as I was able to work from home, which made things easier on me health-wise. Jerk Boss then decided that I needed to come into the office every day, despite a 3-hour round-trip commute. Now, I know you're thinking, why didn't I just leave, get another job somewhere else? I needed the health insurance. There was no way to turn around another job fast enough, and I had a complex surgery requiring 3 surgeons for my procedure. My doctor gave me a note for them, which released me from having to make the daily commute so I could continue to work at home. As long as my work didn't suffer, they legally couldn't force me to commute, especially since working from home was a part of my employment contract from the outset. The night before my surgery, Jerk Boss calls to tell me they've canceled my health insurance. After hanging up with Jerk Boss, I collapsed on the floor in a faint. I was so sick and mentally exhausted from all the stress. The next morning, the CEO frantically calls me asking to talk to me. My mom refuses to let him. I'm on official leave as of that morning and we're heading to the hospital. CEO had told their lawyer about canceling my health insurance and she chewed him a new butthole, telling him it was illegal. They immediately reinstated my insurance. In the 2 weeks I was out, my mom had found a lawyer for me as it was clear shenanigans was going on. I still needed them as an employer because I was in no shape to rigorously job hunt while recovering. Turns out all the BS they were doing to me was illegal. Companies aren't allowed to retaliate against employees when they report nefarious acts against them. I met with my new lawyer who said I had an excellent claim for retaliation and took me on. He said I had to continue working there while he did his thing to stay within protocol while he filed the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission claim. Now it's time for me to return to work. The company had relocated, planned during my absence, and Jerk Boss refused to tell me where so I couldn't come back to work. Company lawyer told them they had to tell me, so Jerk Boss gives me wrong directions, making me late on day one. I walk in the new office and it looks like any other place except for one thing. There is a wide open area directly in front of the CEO's glass office with a single desk in the middle of it. Welcome to my new desk. Also, I wasn't allowed to do sales anymore. In fact, I wasn't allowed to do anything. At all. Period. They had hired a bunch of new people to the company and they treated me like a pariah. Turns out Jerk Boss had gone to telling them a pack of lies, and if they know what's good for them, they'll stay away. Since I had nothing to do but couldn't just sit there looking like a dope, I worked on documenting everything being done to me per my lawyer's advice. I was meticulous in my note-taking. Jerk Boss began writing me up. Stupid stuff like not answering my phone on the first ring and for asking questions during company-wide meetings. Asking to see my personnel file, which employees are legally entitled to do, although not entitled to photocopy any of it. Each time she wrote me up, I had to sign the write-up. There was a space for me to reply to it, so I consistently wrote, "I do not agree with this assessment." It infuriated her so much she wrote me up again for writing the statement that I didn't agree with it. There were several instances where she called me into her office and literally began screaming at me loudly and enthusiastically. I wouldn't engage though. My standard answer to everything was okay, which made her apoplectic. At one point, she's inches from my face screaming. Her face beet red, and I just sat there with a dreamy expression while envisioning her blowing a vein in her head and stroking out. I infuriated her with my equanimity. Still in all, I was in it to win it at this point. It didn't matter what new humiliation they dished out. I took it with a bland face, then went to my desk and documented it in my notebook. She loathed my notebook, sure that I was doing exactly what I was doing, documenting. Because it was my personal property though, she couldn't take it from me. I had to carry all my belongings with me everywhere, company-wide meetings, the bathroom, lunch, because I caught her one time going through my desk drawer. In my effing purse. Although it gave me great joy to write a note reading F you, which I left in my backpack, and jerry-rigging so I could tell if she went into it, which she did. I withstood it all with a brave face, only breaking down once I left for the day. My attorney took a lot of sobbing phone calls during this period. Finally, the day comes that my attorney has what he needs and I can resign. Better still, he advises I don't have to give a 2 weeks notice. I come back from lunch and type up my letter with one sentence. I resign immediately. I take it into the HR guy, who also took part in their evil machinations, and hand it to him. His mouth forms an O shape and he half stands up from the chair as he reads it. He looks up and I give him a smile and say bye-bye, just as sweet as pie. Walked out the door and drove home feeling mighty fine. 1 month later, my lawyer and I are at the EEOC office along with the CEO, Jerk Boss, and their lawyer, so the EEOC can review my claim. In my state, you can't just bring a lawsuit against the company for things like harassment and retaliation. Claims must first be evaluated by the EEOC, and then if they determine you have enough grounds to file a lawsuit, they issue a right to sue document. My lawyer presented my case logically and forthright, detailing all the evidence. It took him 40 minutes to go through it all. Then they presented their side with allegations of my poor employment along with their evidence, which were all the copious write-ups Jerk Boss had written. EEOC asks about the timeline of the write-ups, inquiring if they occurred before or after my claim. Jerk Boss, wearing a smug, self-satisfied smile, states they were all prior to my claim, as noted by the dates on each document. EEOC lady looks at my lawyer. The lawyer looks at me. I look at Jerk Boss, then serenely pull out my photocopies of the documents. While handing them to EEOC lady, Jerk Boss barks, "She's not supposed to have those. They're company property." I show EEOC lady that the dates have clearly been altered by Jerk Boss. She had made copies with the dates blanked out, then backdated them. You see, whenever she wrote me up, I had to take the document personally to the CEO to put it in my personnel file. Along the way, I stopped at the copier and took copies. She never knew I was doing this. You could have heard a pin drop. EEOC lady reviews the copies, then slowly sets them on the table. She didn't say a thing for a long time. Then she spoke. I can remember her words exactly to this day. I've seen a lot of ill treatment and illegal undertakings by both employees and employers, including forged or altered documents, but I have never seen someone so incredibly stupid to present documents this easily disproved. Not only are employees entitled to receive and keep a copy of formal write-ups, but reading these ridiculous allegations, it's obvious you are trying to manufacture your case. She went on to say I had a clear case for a lawsuit, and moreover, I would win it. She recommended their side go in another room and determine a settlement amount to pay me immediately or risk the lawsuit. They went to a nearby office and I could hear the lawyer dressing them down. Words I heard included, lied to me, lied to EEOC, presenting false documents, broke so many laws. Figure out a number big enough to pay her so this doesn't go to court because you will lose. They came back with a $50K offer, which we accepted. My lawyer and I left, then did a football touchdown dance in the parking lot. Looking up at the EEOC window, I could see Jerk Boss in the window looking miserable and crying. She had just been fired. That was my year one revenge. I'm not a hateful person. I get mad and get over it, but for Jerk Boss, I nurtured hatred and vowed to one day get revenge, so I kept tabs on her and discovered she opened a finance marketing company after she was fired. Then I waited a year before exacting my petty delight. For the past 18 years, I've executed a wonderful, soul-refreshing project. Each year, I go to her website and write down all the work email addresses and phone numbers for the employees. Then I subscribe them all to get more information from places like online schools, online insurance companies, all those BS aggressive organizations that keep your contact information longer than a gypsy effing curse while trying to sell you stuff. The last few years, I've subscribed them to an email bomb service where the service takes the address and instantly subscribes it to thousands of newsletters, requests for more information feeds, and other online buyers of email addresses for marketing services. I tested it with a burner email and it wreaks havoc on your inbox with thousands of emails received within seconds, and they never effing stop. You literally have to close down the email because it can't be salvaged. Every year when I go to collect the contact information, all the emails have been changed to new ones. Last year, my cousin took a job in the same building. I enlisted her help and she made it a point to befriend a receptionist working for Jerk Boss. After executing my yearly plan, my cousin went to lunch with her. The receptionist was in a foul mood and explained the entire organization was in disarray because IT had to redo all the emails again. It keeps happening over and over and nobody can figure out why. She said the owner, Jerk Boss, has had to get her cell phone number replaced 3 times because of all the texts and phone calls she gets whenever it happens again. Sometimes Jerk Boss would have her phone number on the website, which I duly subscribed to everything under the sun. The best part for me was hearing how she lost a mega client because they felt the company was in too much turmoil so often. The thought of this keeps me warm and cozy at night, and I sleep very, very well. Edit, I forgot a part of the tale. A Redditor mentioned that if the investor pulled out, that would have been a neat twist. That jogged my memory. The investor did pull out. Once I left the company, they couldn't duplicate the same scale of sales revenue I had been generating, and the investor got skittish. The company did go on to succeed, sans Jerk Boss and CEO, but it took them much longer due to the fiasco. That was rSlash/Nuclearrevenge, and that kind of felt like witnessing a train wreck. Did you guys enjoy the video? Let me know down in the comments, or if this was a little bit too intense for you, let me know and I'll stick to Prorevenge.